Okay, so my name is Soma, as mentioned by Desi, my colleague. So yeah, I was here since 2012 when I pursued my study in the UK and came back in 2019 and then started Jembatan Bahasa Language School in 2020. So today I'm going to share with you guys um, based on my 10-year experience of teaching and also some language acquisition studies, what is the most effective way to master Indonesian? So just to get an idea of my audience here, how many of you have spoken Indonesian already? Can I have a raise of hands? Oh, nice. Okay, good. And how many of you are planning to learn Indonesian? Knew a few words? Okay. All right, that's very good. Okay, so let's start with fun facts about Bahasa Indonesia. Okay, can somebody tell me some fun facts that you know about the language or the country that related to the language culture that you heard of or you might read somewhere?
A lot of slang words.
A lot of slang words, but you Indonesian. Yeah.
The future of stands on
Yeah, that's right. So we don't have tenses like in English. So that's one of the reasons Indonesian is the easiest language to learn. One of the easiest language to learn. We'll talk about it. Some tricky parts. But for now, it's a very simple to learn. Thank you. Anyone else? Learn.
something that I learned. There is a he, she, or it. So we use dia, and it's like a meat curry. Who is dia? It's a girl or a man.
Yeah, it's true. So there's no pronoun specific, gender specific pronoun. So I mean, I've been learning English for a long time, and I still get mixed up between she and he. It's now there's other pronouns as well, right? Like uh, with you know gender and neutral gender and stuff. Okay, yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh wow. Yes, that's true. Yeah. So yes, that's exactly. So, but that's specifically in Bali. So my complete name is Made Soma. In English, you will say I made Soma, which is very weird. But in fact, it's very common in the airport in the UK. That's what people call me. I made Soma. I made Soma. But yeah, so E indicates a man, and Made indicates I'm a second born child. So that's why my real name specific to me personally is Soma. So if you're wondering why I go by my last name, because we don't have last name. So my real name is Soma, and so my dad's name is not Soma. So, okay, so it is a standardized version of Malay, uh, which is widely spoken in Malaysia, Brunei, and also Singapore. So there are two main modern versions of Malay. So Malay is a lingua franca in Indonesia and Malaysia area a long time ago. And there's two modern versions of that. One is Bahasa Melayu, which is used in Malaysia, and the other one is Bahasa Indonesia, which is used in Indonesia. So if you go to Malaysia, for example, you okay? um, yeah, if you go to Malaysia, you will find some similarities. Yeah. Um, and mistakenly refer as Bahasa, and I correct many people about this. So Bahasa means language, right? So if you say I speak Bahasa, like what language? So that's why we have Bahasa Bali, Balinese language, which is a complete different language from Bahasa Indonesia. And then, yeah, so you locally it's known as Bahasa Indonesia, and internationally Indonesian or Indonesian language. About 250 million fluent speakers, but only 40 million use it as their first language. So Indonesia as a whole has about 700 local languages. So in Bali, there's Bahasa Bali, right? And if you go to other regions in Indonesia, there's a lot more local languages. So Bahasa Indonesia is the lingua franca for people across the country. So that's why it's created to be simple, so people can, everybody can learn it quickly. That's the idea. Um, and then about 34% of its vocabulary are loan words. So if you speak Dutch, and I mean English, obviously, that you will have a huge advantage because we have a lot of loan words from those languages, and some local languages as well, like Japanese and Sundanese, bit of Balinese, and all other languages. It uses Latin alphabet, so easy. In Balinese, we have special characters, but not in Bahasa Indonesia. Phonetic language, meaning one letter represents one sound. So you pronounce the word exactly as it's spelled. There's one exception, but we can talk about it. But in general, you can consider it. You can read whatever Indonesian words as it is spelled. Okay, so if you know all the pronunciation of each letter, you can pronounce any words in Indonesian. No tenses, we talked about this, and yeah. So that's some fun facts about Bahasa Indonesia. So if you're planning to learn, just know it's a simple language to learn. All right, now, all right. So should I learn formal or informal Indonesian? This is a big question before you're learning Indonesian. Yeah, so formal is the standardized Indonesian. So when the language was created, obviously linguists and the government created the rules, right? You have to put affixes and all of that. And informal is like the spoken language, what everybody use in daily life, right? So yeah, so normally formal Indonesian is used in writing, and speeches for politicians and formal occasions, but for everyday speaking, it's mostly informal. Yes.
As someone who was born in the country but left Indonesia when I was 9 years old, I find that I needed to learn more formal because I struggle with newspapers and speaking with banking,
Yeah. Yeah.
That's when I really need help.
Yeah.
However, conversationally informal managed this fine, I hope. Yeah.
So you Indonesian, but you left the country.
When I was 9 years old,
Oh, I
I
see.
returned as an adult, and I can speak Indonesian with the staff here in the
Yeah.
community. However, when it comes to banking and I have to speak to someone on the phone with about banking or reading the newspaper,
Yeah.
I find it a bit of a struggle. So I find it's good to learn both.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So my suggestion is always learn natural Indonesian. So here's the thing: there is no, like when we speak. I was about to find President Joko Widodo interview, which has a mix of formal and informal Indonesian. So there's actually no a strict line between these two languages. It's not like it's a separate language. So we do mix it up, although in some occasions, one is more dominant than others. So for example, if I talk to my friends here, obviously it will be a lot of formal, informal Indonesian, but there will be some words that is considered formal as well, like the use of me or ber, which is prefixes and suffixes to formalize the language normally. And the same case with the speech, formal speech, you will have some enggak or ta instead of tidak, which is the informal form of tidak, of no. So my suggestion is learn authentically, meaning find sources that is not meant for learners. So that's been my approach. And some other formal that is not natural is normally directly translated from English. For example, some of my students often say, "Semoga harimu menyenangkan," which means "Have a nice day," right? Which we don't say that. So like we never say that. Like any Indonesian you ask, right? You never say that. Like when you leave, like, "Oh, semoga harimu menyenangkan," right? Um, so that's one example. It is formal and unnatural, but some formal languages are natural. So that's why you have to learn the natural language through authentic learning. We're going to talk more about that. Okay, I think that satisfy your question and answer. Yeah.
Do young Indonesian people have like a slang, like um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They do, um, and like that, every region has their own version of slang as well, and this is the tricky part about learning. No, I reveal the secret. But I went to Papua in 2016, right, and been a couple of times. I didn't understand a word of Indonesian what they say because they speak slightly different version, right? But they understand me, and that is because they exposed to TVs and all multimedia that they exposed to. It's mainly the like the common language, including slang, mainly Jakartan slang. So yeah, so I think you start with the most frequently words that are understood by any other Indonesians, and if you go to regional wait, well, regional area, you will find some words that might not be familiar to you. But yeah, it's normal, right? So in English at all, you have some version from region to region. But if you use the most common one, you have um, a good reference. Yeah, effective ways to master English. All right, so this is what you're coming here for, right? Um, so um, I have 4 tips for you on how to master English, and I in my class I always conduct an interview when my students learn Indonesian, like how outside of class, what do you do to learn Indonesian, right? And obviously in class, we do specific approaches as well. So, and then I summarize that into 4 tips for everybody who wants to master Indonesian. The first one is comprehensible input, and this is a very well-known theory by a linguist, Preben Preston. And he said, we learn a language through subconscious process that occurs when we are exposed to comprehensible input, right? So now what is comprehensible input? Let's start with input. So in language learning, input is listening and reading, right? So when you listen to a foreign language, it helps you with your output, which in this case, speaking, right? And if you read a lot, then it will help with your writing. Okay, so that's input. Now, comprehensible is something that slightly above your level. So here's the analogy. If you want to learn a new language and you go to Jakarta, for example, where most people, native Indonesians, right, who their first language is Indonesian, and you just immerse yourself in the culture, right, for some period of time. Do you think you will learn the language? Most likely no, because it's like swimming. If you can't swim at all, and you throw yourself in a deep pool, you'll you will be drowning, right? So that's the idea. So it needs to be comprehensible. It's about so you need to know that what you listen to or read, you would you need to know that about 70%. Then that will be comprehensible. Okay. And then compelling. So you need to find uh, resources that interesting, right? And maybe it's a bit tricky if you just start to learn the language, but as you progress, you can, obviously find topics that you interested in. It can be finance or whatever your background is. And authentic. So we talk about this based on real life settings and context. Now, during my time here, I looked at a lot of textbooks from many resources, and yeah, I would consider like a lot of those textbooks are not authentic, meaning they're created to fit with the first language of the learner, which is mainly English, right? So normally they will learn similar expressions in English and they try to make it into a lesson, right? And that is not authentic. And so there's a lot of textbooks that are based on real life settings and context. So you have to find that that is relevant with your current level, right? Because you don't want to be too hard and you don't want it to be easy. All right. Any question about comprehensible input? So far, so good. Okay. All right. So that's the first one. The second one is spaced repetition. Anybody heard of this technique before? Spaced repetition. If you learn another language, or it can be other subject. To demonstrate, let me show you my favorite app of all time. And mouse is not working. There you go. All right. So this is called Anki, which is a free app that you can download. But you can use other apps as well that use this technique. So spaced repetition is basically a process to transfer what is in your short-term memory into your long-term memory. Okay. So let's say from your comprehensible input, you pick a few words, right, an expression, and then you put it in this app, and then so this is for my English learning, right? Oops. Okay, so if I use this, so just to give an example, I have some expression here. All right, very nice. And then this is the powerful one on the bottom. So you can tell this app to repeat this word, the occurrence of this word. So if it's too hard, then this word will occur in 7 days. If it's good, it will be in 8 days. If it's easy, it will be in 10 days. So in total of time, depending how familiar you with the word. Okay. And so you might have 1,000 words in your app, but you won't see it every day. You won't see your words every single day. So depending on your the way you familiar yourself with the word. Yeah. Back when I didn't find this app, I used a zip plastic bag, the plastic bag that you use for medicine, right? And then I mark it with familiar, not familiar, and very familiar, right? So I have three plastic bags with me. And then every time I'll review the not familiar one, and if I feel it's already familiar enough, I move it into the next bag. So now when I found this, oh my God, it's technology, it's already there. Yeah, it's amazing. I still remember some words that I learned a long time ago, and it's basically still in your long-term memory, right? Purple. So highly recommended. It's not free on Apple, unfortunately, but there is Anki Pro. There's in Apple is an Anki Pro. I never use it personally, but some of my students mentioned it's very similar to Anki Droid. This is called Anki Droid, free for Android, but not for Apples. I don't know the logic behind it, but they decide to.
So it will give reminders, something like that. Yeah, it will pop up in your phone.
You can, yeah, you can set your phone to give you notice. But yeah, but to be honest, I don't like pop-up messages, so I just need to open the app manually, which I do every day in the bathroom.
Okay,
Too much. All you need is 5 to 10 minutes, right? You're done every day. So yeah, if you're busy, then it's no excuse. Okay, any question about spaced repetition? All good? Yeah. So the concept, if you don't like technology, then you can try use sit back. Yeah.
Does Duolingo also use the timer pitch?
Yeah. So they have their own algorithm. They use it to some extent. So yeah, because the repetition you will the words occurs right based on if you answer it correctly. So yeah, they do use this technique, but slightly differently. You have less control. Oh yeah, focus on most common words. We talk about this. So yeah, and then learn collocations, not individual words when possible. Collocations is a group of words that always come together. Like in English, you will have what's some? Help me out, guys. Some collocations in English. Okay, yeah, that can work. Yeah, apa kabar instead of just apa and kabar because they're two separate meanings, right? Yeah, so that's some give you more context. Try to turn words into pictures. This is yeah, for some individual words, I think it's easy to do. So if I tell you the word lama, right, which means anybody? No, Indonesian. It means long, right? Lama means long. Now, if you remember lama long, that can take forever. But if you remember lama, the animal, which has long neck, um, you more likely will remember in the future, right? So lama equal to long neck of the animal lama. Mahal, which means expensive. So Taj Mahal is an expensive place or something like that. So that's creative ideas on how to remember words. Yeah, because the more connections you have in your brain, the more likely you'll remember that words, right? So yeah, speech repetition. Now shadowing, right? So shadowing is the way to like mimic native speaker pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation. Indonesian is relatively easy because I mean for stress syllables it's not as strict as in English as well. Like in English is you have very emphasis is really important, right? But Indonesian not really. Some words are emphasis a little bit, but not most of them. But there's some phonemes which is specific sounds that don't exist in your brain yet, right? So that's something you have to train your brain to do. And this is what shadowing is really effective to do that. So basically, you listen to a native speaker and try to repeat, like with the intonation and stuff. Okay, so shadow. Right. And the last one, finding the right mentor and language partner, right? Yeah, the whole point of learning a language is to communicate, right? You might not be comfortable at the beginning, but eventually that will be your goal. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be a mentor, a teacher, but it can be a language exchange or stuff like that. But you need native speakers to correct you and to listen to them, right? So, in my opinion, there are two main criteria for you to find a language partner, right? One, as we mentioned, they expose you to a lot of comprehensible input, right? So if you have Indonesian teachers who speak English for most of the class, then I would yeah, I mean, it can be fun because you maybe joke around, but for language learning perspective, it's not effective. Obviously because you don't have as much comprehensible input. So you have to go from your comfort zone, expose yourself to a lot of Indonesian that is comprehensible. Okay, right to a level. And secondly, they motivate you to continue learning. Right now, a lot of my students ask me, "Is Duolingo effective to learn Indonesian?" In my opinion, it's not the most effective way, but it's motivating. Because I learn English sometimes, right? It feels like you go to gym to work out, like light enough for you to come back the next day because you don't have to work hard, right? And that's what Duolingo does. It takes you 10 or 15 minutes to do answer translation question while you're there. Um, but in terms of effectiveness, some other methods that's more, but it's not. I mean, it's better than nothing, right? So it still have some input somehow. So yeah, for teachers, they need to motivate you, right? For you to continue learning, and that's obviously, it's obvious because you don't, if your teacher is not motivating, then there's no point of learning if you're not motivated. um, okay, so yeah, that's it really. So just to summarize what we talk about. Yes, question? Oh, you just wait. Sorry. Too sensitive. Yeah, so comprehensible input, which is fine. The if your goal is to speak the language, then you need to learn through your ears. A lot of listening, right? That is right for your level. If you want to eventually, the Indonesian who left the country at 9 and want to read newspapers or understand academic Indonesian writing, then read a lot of this kind of stuff, right? But I would say the majority of you want to talk, right? Is that correct? Mainly you want to talk. But I mean, if you read newspaper, I mean, it's English newspaper, at least to start with. But eventually, if you want to go to that direction, yeah, you will need reading input. Um, so yeah, a lot of listening, comprehensible listening in Indonesian, and then space repetition, words that you're not familiar with, put it in your space repetition. Review it 5 to 10 minutes every day. Consistency is key, right? And then shadowing to make your speech more natural and understandable. And then finally, mentor, right? This is can be, it's not in the order. You can find mentor anytime. Yeah, it can be a group because it can be fun as well to learn with other people. Just make sure they expose you to a lot of comprehensible input and they motivate you. Right. With that, I think you're ready to start your adventure to learn the language. Um, yeah, pretty much it from that.
Any questions, guys? The audience? I was actually, as an Indonesian, also very intrigued to learn, like, hear what you shared with us, Soma, because I think we take it for granted. Like, as we're born already, we exposed to this, language, and we can just speak naturally. But it's very, like, the fun fact that you share, the trivial things, also very interesting for me. And yeah, I can see that you're an expert in this field. And the thing that you shared about language learning, it can be implemented to other languages
Yeah,
as well,
definitely.
right? Mhm. I was wondering, can you share a bit about your experience with learning several languages at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, are you planning to learn other languages as well?
Yeah, actually, it's not for myself, but for my kids.
Oh,
I'm like thinking, is it okay for them to learn Bahasa and also start French and German at the same time, or is it easier to stick to one language, or does it matter?
Yeah, I mean, so if we see it from um like this comprehensible input, so that will be depends on so if we if I restate the statement, right, the only way the to learn a language is through comprehensible input, and that will uh that tells you how much comprehensible input you have. So more comprehensible input, the more quicker. So the quicker you master that language, right? Now it depends on your goal. You want to master that language quick enough, then you would need dedicate more time to a specific language, right? But if you want to speak more languages, um, and then you need to divide your time for specific comprehensive input, um, then yeah, you will have a slower pace of progress. Unless the language is maybe closely related. So like if you're learning Indonesian and Malaysian, there won't be yeah much different. But on Indonesian and French, it's like there's no connection whatsoever. So yeah, I think it's back to your goal. So you want to master a specific language faster, or you want to yeah speak multiple languages but in slower pace. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I have another question.
Mhm.
Can you share a bit about the relationship between or the balance between grammar and learning words? When is the time to start with the grammar, understanding more about the system of the language, and when do you start with words, or how do you combine the both?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, grammar is important, definitely, no doubt about it. But there are two ways to learn grammar, right? Consciously through reviewing grammar rules, and subconsciously, which is through listening, and you kind of know that is correct, and that's how native speakers learn, right? They don't know that is correct, but it feels correct, right? And that's so in my experience learning English, I combine both, but the my focus or majority of my time I spend more to the subconscious process, which is the listening. And then if I want to review a specific grammars that really bothers me, like why people keep saying that instead of this, then I look at the rules about that. So yeah, I would say spend more of your time into listening and reading, and maybe occasionally look at some grammar rules. Yeah, to complement that. Oh, I like this. A lot of questions, a lot of curious audience.
And so actually next week we will start the program with Jembatan Bahasa, right? Especially for the parents. Maybe you can speak more about that. Like how long is the program and what would you learn about the Indonesian?
Yeah. So yeah, as I mentioned, it is an easy language to learn. You here, you have a huge library, quotation mark, right? So you can expose yourself to a lot of listening in your daily conversation. Um, yeah, give it a go. And a group can be fun as well. You learn with some other parents and colleagues. Um, what time is it again? 1:30, right? So it's next week. And I'm not sure how many of you enroll already, but if you do and you speak the language a little bit, try the placement test. I think will be sent already. So uh, we want to split the groups into province level, so we can give you the right comprehensible input. The one keywords that I keep mentioning: comprehensible input. Um, yeah. Do you want to add about that? Okay, or did I miss anything?
I think some people is already signed up here, so I can see you. And then, but I don't think people who learn from the beginning do the placement test. If you're like really blank, it's okay.
Yeah, yeah. You don't have to take placement test if you complete beginner, right? There's no point. Yeah, if you speak the language already, then yeah, go ahead. Good practice as well. Skip the questions that you're not sure of, so we know what level you're in. Don't guess, because it will defeat the purpose of the test. Yeah.
With that, I think that's a wrap. Thank you so much, everyone who's watching
Thank
online
you
as
guys
well.
for spending
Thank you so much. Very interesting.